Welcome to the channel. Thank you everybody for tuning in. On today's video, we are looking at the Seaston 62 Mass Homage. Now, viewers of this channel know I have covered plenty of 62 Mass Homages out there. I've looked at the Steel Dive, the Heimdallr, and also the San Martin 62 Mass Homages. San Martin went as far as making 4 different versions, albeit slight improvements from the previous one. Now that's because the original Seiko 6217 62 Mass was such an iconic and legendary watch, especially to the die-hard Seiko fans. So it's no wonder when they do come out, people do go crazy. But I always found one main problem with all the previous mentioned homages, which was the dimensions. They were way off. You're looking at around a 40mm case diameter and a 50mm lug to lug, so different to the original dimensions. However, that changed when 54 watch came out and I managed to review their 6217 homage, and I think the dimensions on that were near enough perfect. Incredible looking watch, and it did manage to emulate those basic rudimentary retro dive watch looks. So that brings us to the Seaston right here. As you can tell, the dimensions are still pretty small. It still tries to remain true to the original 6217. However, there are loads of notable features that do make it different and do modernize it that much more to bring this up to date to today's standards. Now, they have achieved that by providing us this almost top hat style domed sapphire crystal with underside AR coating. As you can see, the AR coating is not obtrusive at all. They've also given us a fully ceramic bezel insert with an integrated lume pip, which is a really nice touch, adds to the overall finish of the watch. You also have a 120 click unidirectional bezel. The watch does hack and wind, with the movement being a Seiko Epson NH35 movement, which is a super economic, super reliable and robust movement out there. They just don't go wrong, and if they do, they are very easily replaced. As well as that, they have upgraded the water resistance to 200 meters, which is aided by the screw down crown, a screw down case back, and as you can see, the watch is a full 316L stainless steel case. Now, moving on to dimensions, you do have a case diameter of 38mm, a lug to lug of 46.3mm, and a overall case thickness of 13.4mm. The lug width is 20mm, and the overall weight on the strap that you see the watch is on is 95 grams. The price. Now, Seaston's prices are quite interesting. Across the whole range, they don't really fluctuate between models. They've got the same price, which is around £136 and around $185. Where does that sit in terms of value? Well, so far, if you look at the Doxa homage, I've got this 62 Mass homage here as well, and I did also receive this from them, which was this sub homage. Now, cost is such a subjective thing, but I do think that they've priced themselves really well. They do seem to sit right in the middle of a lot of the brands out there. So let's go ahead and have a much closer look at this 62 Mass homage by Seaston. The first thing that you'll see is this magnificent deep red, slightly fumade dial option. You do get a slight gradient where the dial starts to darken the closer it gets to the edges. Now, granted, the dial color is slightly unorthodox. However, they do have quite a lot of different dial options, which you can check out on their store on AliExpress if you want something just a little more toned down, and then you definitely find a color there that you like. Now, the features on the dial, as you can see, you do have a mixture of applied features and of course printed. Now, below the 12, you do have the Seaston text printed just across the dial. Above the 6, you do have automatic 200 meters. You also have a printed minute tracker around the dial. The hour markers are applied, and you can see they do have a highly polished frame surrounding them. As well as that, as you can tell, the applied hour markers are in a baton shape, but they do vary in sizes. The marker at the 12 o'clock being the thickest, the widest, followed by the marker at the 6 and the marker at the 9, and the ones in between are just slightly slimmer. You also have a applied beveled date frame. As you can see, you do have a grainy texture on the insides of the bevels, but you also do have a polished frame on the outside of the date window. Now, I'd just like to pause right here, just have a look at the date window. It feels the date is quite off and slightly to the left. Obviously, I went back to Seaston and inquired about why the date is so far aligned to the left. So this was basically down to a manufacturing error. As you'll probably know, that the date wheel is actually loomed. Now, that's not a standard feature on the Seiko Epson NH35 movement, so they had to send off the date discs to get them manufactured from a different place. And basically, it was a mess up on their side. They did not follow the drawings well enough, which meant that date is aligned to the left slightly. However, when you do go over to the double digit numbers, it's not so noticeable and not too bad really. But on the single digits, it does look quite bad. So I know that is going to affect quite a lot of people because let's face it, when it comes to watches, not only are they precision engineered, or they're meant to be, I think a lot of us watch guys, we do hone in on these smaller details, and it can be enough to put somebody off. Is it a deal breaker for me? I'm not too sure at the moment. Of course, I don't like to see that, but as mentioned, when it comes to double digits, it's not too bad. It's all right. They do need to fix this ASAP, and they have confirmed that when they do make another batch of these date wheels, they will have corrected the problem. Aside from that, the overall quality of the dial is actually really well done. Let's have a closer look at the handsets. You'll see you do have baton-like handsets, and again, quite similar to the original 62 Mass. Now, there is finer detail present on these hands. You can see that both edges are chamfered and polished, leaving the center of the hand to be brushed in a linear fashion. Now, that gives it some incredible light play. It gives you a lot of texture to look at the handset. Now, the second hand is slightly different. It's not polished like they usually are. It is fully brushed. I don't know how you guys feel about that. It does stand out differently on the dial. If you look at it from a legibility point of view, it's good. There is another slight feature present on the second hand. It is extended. As you can see, the tip does touch the edge of the dial, which I absolutely love. And you look at the mini hand, that's also long enough. It is just about touching the markers. Now, these are the ideal proportions, and even judging by a lot of the comments out there, people do prefer these kind of lengths. Now, you do have a coin edge bezel, quite low profile. So with regards to rotation, there's no hot spots. It is pretty consistent. It does line up exactly at the 12 o'clock hour marker. And on top of that, yeah, it has the right amount of resistance, very tactile as well, and good positive feedback, no movement. So, there's not much more that you can ask from a bezel. And of course, the type of rotation and movement is highly subjective, but this is definitely okay. There's no issues. Let's move over to the body of the watch, and as you turn the watch to its side, you'll see a really nice crown, no crown guards, and I think the thickness of the crown is okay. It's not too thick, not too large, but again, not too slim, which does not allow you to rotate it, open it and close it. The threads are very decent as well. There's no grittiness. It screws down really well, so no issues there. And you do also have some signage, which is Seastern's logo, which is of course a starfish, because Seastern in German means starfish. Now let's turn the case over and let's have a look at this case back. Now, they used the same case back on the Doxa Homage, and as you can see, it does have that wave pattern. You do have some texturing just behind it. You do have a brushed finish. You can see the design here is quite thick and it feels really, really soft. The case back is really well finished, and you also have the star logo. Now, you also have some specifications around the case back, which is pretty normal, but let's have a look at what it says here. It says SE Monster. Now, I believe they use this case back. It is quite generic. I think they've used it across a few of the models for this to, of course, say Monster when this is far from it. But I think in that case, there's no point, I think, printing model names or numbers on case backs unless they are going to be individual to the watch. I think it's okay to leave them semi-sterile, or just say some generic text like automatic and Sapphire 200 meters, etc. That way you can use it across all your watches without being specific. Let's pay some special attention to the case. Now, this case is somewhat different than the 54 watch case and a lot of the other cases that we do see. Now, the normal cases that we have seen, they share one major thing in finishing. They do have a brushed A-face and they have extremely high polished sides. Now, this is where this case differs quite a lot. Yes, you can see A-face brushing. It is circular brushing, but one of the things you'll notice is just looking at the strokes, look how finely done it is, right? And we saw similar finishing on the Doxa Homage as well. So, I think they do pay quite a lot of attention to the finishing. It is extremely smooth, almost a satin-like texture. And that is one thing that I do really appreciate. Now, we turn the watch to its side, you'll also see that finishing has continued across the side of the case. Again, a very finely brushed case. You also have drilled end lugs, which is always a bonus, very practical feature to have on a watch. But just have a look at that, again, satinized finish. And I think that gives the watch a very tool-like appeal, because those highly polished sides, they were an absolute nightmare. They'd pick up so many light scratches, and before you know it, you do have a marked up watch along the side. But this will do a really good job of hiding those micro scratches and marks, because that finishing is, again, extremely smooth. Now there is one more slight feature which I absolutely love on this C-Stern, and if you look just on the edges of the lugs going across to the side of the case, you'll see this beveled edge which has been polished, and that does taper down from the tip along by the crown, and it is present on all four corners of the lugs. Now that is a really good feature, very subtle, but I think visually it does make quite a large difference. And I absolutely love when watch cases do this, because it just adds a different highlight to the case, because these watch cases, they are quite simple. However, just adding that little highlight along there, I think really makes a watch case stand out. I think that looks really good. I think the highlights on there are excellent, and the finishing on the case is really well executed. And now these 6.2 Mas watches, they are absolute strap monsters, absolute strap beasts. You can put everything on there, from mesh bracelets to beads of rice bracelets, to any type of rubber strap, any type of leather strap. So that is totally up to you. Personally, I prefer these on the more vintage style straps, which would be, I think, the tropical style straps or even the waffle style straps. But they have sent this on almost a tire tread style of strap. It is quite different, very soft and supple, right? I think it's FKM rubber, 20mm with a quick release spring bars. But yeah, it's just so subjective with straps. I'm not really too fussed what type of strap it is, as long as it's not a silly color. And then you've got also on the buckle C-Stern lasered across there. But yeah, the strap, you can change it, there's no point commenting on there, but the quality of the strap is fairly decent. And this is the C-Stern 62 Mas Homage on my 6.5 inch wrist, and as you can tell, the proportions are absolutely spot on for this style wrist. Of course, they'll fit bigger wrists as well, and smaller wrists alike. Very comfortable watch. Now I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's that added fine brushing present along the side of the case and at the bottom, or maybe it's that case back is finished so well. It feels really good on wrist, I must say. And you know, with regards to bracelets, it's up to you, whatever your choice is. But I think this watch and also the Captain Willard homages, those are two watches for me that do not look good on a bracelet in my eyes anyway. I always have to have them on straps, and those tropical and waffle style straps. But that looks really good, and I have no doubt in my mind that the more orthodox dialed options will look even better. But you know, this red, it is something different, definitely does stand out, and I think everything else just goes really well with the watch. The highlight being this amazingly well finished case. So hopefully they can resolve that date issue. I mean, at a distance, it doesn't look too bad. And of course, with the double date digit, it's even harder to spot that misalignment. But once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. So that concludes my review for this C-Stern 62 Mas Homage. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section on this watch, and I will see you on the next video.